Okay, so welcome everyone to the webinar for A&O First. This is your path to exceptional and understanding the process. Thank you so much for taking the time to come today and join to speak to us. I'm so happy that you're all on and excited to learn about the process. My name is Aoife. I'm the Graduate Recruitment Coordinator, Early Careers Coordinator at Allen & Overy, and I am hosting this programme with Charlie in April. If you want to pass over to Charlie just to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Charlie. I work in the Early Careers Recruitment team with Aoife, and I'll also be hosting the programme in April, and I'll be hanging around on this webinar until the end to take any questions as well with Aoife at the end of the webinar today. So hope you enjoy what we've got in store.
So just a really quick housekeeping for today. The purpose of the webinar is just to talk through what the programme's about, the application process that you'll be going through, and we're going to introduce you to a panel of students as well who are part of A&O First last year, and just to help you understand, is this the right opportunity for you and how you can absolutely smash the application for it. So for the programme structure, everything is in person post-COVID. So for the 3rd and 4th of April, it would be an in-office experience in the London office. And if you are travelling from outside of London, if you're a little bit further away, we do help with those travel costs as well. We can reimburse your train travel, or however you choose to get to London, up to £100. Those who live further than an hour and a half outside of London, we do help with accommodation as well if it's a little bit more difficult to get there. As well as this, on the first day, we do start a little bit later just to kind of give you a bit of help travelling in. For the eligibility for this programme as well, you do need to be in your first year of a 3-year degree or your second year of a 4-year, non-law, law, Russell Group, non-Russell Group, absolutely anything. And the applications for this do close on the 10th of Feb. So the programme itself is 2 full days of experience, workshops and opportunities to build your professional network. You get to know a commercial law firm, you get to learn what it's like to work at A&O, what it's like to be here day to day, get a true sense of whether this is the right firm for you. You'll have a first-hand experience of seeing what the culture's like within the office, individuals within practice areas and the working groups. The 2 days will be made up of introduction sessions to these practice areas, for example, an introduction to banking or to litigation, just to give you a real sense of what A&O does. We'll have skills workshops and panel sessions on topics that are really interesting at the moment, such as pro bono initiatives and ESG. This programme is essentially a teeny tiny VAC scheme squished into 2 days to give you the best insight possible into the world of A&O. One of the huge selling points, I think, of this programme, the other first year schemes, is that you're giving a trainee mentor who's your key point of contact at A&O for your entire first year. So from now until September, you'll be introduced to them before the scheme starts, so you can ask them any sort of questions that you may have about the day-to-day life here, and just to give you a bit of contact throughout the summer and going into the autumn this year, that you have that professional network and you've got that contact at a commercial law firm when you go back to uni or when you go back home. You'll be in continuous contact with them. They're there to help you with any questions you may have at all, insights into the firm, and just to create a touch point for you really for the year. As well as this, you'll have a whole cohort there to support you of friends that you're going to make on the scheme. They'll be in different places, they'll be studying different subjects. It really gives you an insight into all the different people that end up working in law and all the friends that you're going to make. And you always keep in contact with each other as well, because the chances are that you may be working with them in the future, whether that be for a vacation scheme, a training contract, or whatever you choose to do. Everyone always knows someone and you'll always bump into them again. As well as this, one of the most important selling points, I think, this element of a direct fast track to a vacation scheme or a training contract. After we have the 2 days in April, there's another return a day in September where you are given all those skills to prime and prep you for the assessment centres and for the interviews, you then have the choice of a winter vac, a summer vac, or a direct training contract, whatever you feel you would like to apply to after having this insight in April. So just moving on now to what the application is going to be like and what we expect from you. So we do not accept CVs or cover letters, so you don't have to worry about that. Everything is completely online. You'll have a online biography to fill in, really basic stuff about you. You'll then be invited to complete a situational judgment test. This is untimed, but we do recommend you do it in one sitting. Just makes things a lot easier for you. The verbal and numerical reasoning elements are a really, really minor part of the test. It's more based on hypothetical situations that you may face as a trainee here at A&O. You'll watch a video of the scenario and you've got a multiple choice after, just to kind of get an understanding of how you would react to these as a trainee. So after you have submitted your application, within the first sheet of information, you put in where you went to uni, what your grades are, and then you'll be faced with a couple of questions. There's only two. The first one is just so we get to know you a little bit better. We want to know about the key things that make your personality and make you. We want to understand a bit more about what you do outside your studies. Are you part of a society, whether that's sports, whether that's just an interest society at university, a sports team at home? Do you have any positions of responsibility within these teams as well? What particular interests do you have? It's always really interesting to have an idea of what someone's like over paper to meet them in person again, and you've got something to talk about too. We want to know what your hobbies are like too, just really kind of get inside your brain. Even though the question does specify to put it in bullet points, please do elaborate on these. We would like full sentences, not just a bullet point of tennis club. Tell us what position you have within the tennis club, what competitions you have done, what awards you have done, what skills you've learned within this. We want you to demonstrate the proactivity and getting involved, and we want you to tell us how you balance these hobbies with your educational work as well. Why is it important that you've developed these skills through your extracurricular activities, and how you can apply this to being a trainee? For the second question is a little bit more focused. We want to understand your career motivation for applying for this opportunity at A&O, but also why you're interested in commercial law as a whole. Are there any particular deals at the moment or firms that you recognise in the press? You know, what interests you about these things? And can you tell us a little bit more about it, about why you find it interesting, the people you'd like to work with, just why does it resonate with you? It could be anything from a client that you recognise the name of, just something that really pushes you to be involved in the commercial world. For stage 2, once this application has gone through and you have passed the situational judgment test, you will be invited for a video interview. This will take no longer than 30 minutes. It's just some questions from the Early Careers team to understand your motivation for applying for this programme. The majority of the conversation will be based around the commercial case study that we will give you. There's no preparation needed before this, apart from just general research, keeping up to date with things, whether that be Twitter, reading papers, having notifications sent through to your phone, just so you've got it fresh in your mind that you can talk about. After the video interview with the Early Careers team, the successful people will be contacted and invited to join the programme. Just a little bit of a date for you to keep in mind. Interviews will be commencing from Monday the 20th of Feb, and we do hope to give you between 5 days and a week's notice before your interview, just so you have that time to prepare and not panic, and just know that it's coming up so you're ready to talk to us. So who are we looking for? We are looking for you. We really, really want to push the point and encourage you to really be yourself. We recruit from an enormous range of universities, whether that be, like I said earlier, red brick, non-red brick, whether you're studying law or whether you're studying humanities or science. It really doesn't matter what your degree discipline is, just as long as that you are in your first year of a 3-year or second year of a 4-year. You're not the finished product. We completely know that. We're just looking for the potential that you may have, and you can demonstrate through the 2 questions that we've given to you. As long as you've got the good commercial understanding and the confidence to share your opinion about things, we want you to provide your own thoughts and maybe your own solutions about things. How can you apply what you've learnt about the commercial world into structured answers during your interview or during your application process? Just a note as well, for the academic requirements, we currently ask for AAB at A level, and to be on track for a 2-1 in your undergrad degree. Obviously, as your first year, I know a lot of you are currently doing your first term exams. We know that you're not going to have those results yet. So just provide us with the module names. We'd still be really interested to see what you're studying. We will then have a little bit of a checkpoint throughout the year just to see how that went, because I know that you won't get your results for a little while after the exams this month or maybe before Christmas. So if you don't have any grades as well, just make sure you do put your A levels in there too, and we can always just base it off of that as well. So I will return a little bit later to answer any questions about this process. Charlie and I are going to hang around, but for now I would like to introduce to you 3 of the students who were on A&O First last year, who are also our current brand ambassadors. We're going to open the floor to you to ask them a couple of questions, just so you can really gauge a good insight into people who have done it themselves and they have their success stories. So if you would like to, please pop a couple of questions into the chat function. I'm going to pop a few out and present them to the panel. First of all, I would like, in order on the screen, Amy, if you wouldn't mind going first, just to introduce yourself really briefly, give a little bit of context about your journey, and then Charlie and I are going to put some questions to you all.
So hi, I'm Amy. I'm a second-year law student at the University of Nottingham. I took part in A&O First last year, and then I also took part in the firm's winter vacation scheme, and I am now a future trainee.
Hi everyone, my name's Atharv. I've grown up in Singapore and India, and I'm a second-year law student at Queen Mary. I'm also the brand ambassador at Queen Mary alongside Lara, and I took part in A&O First last year, and I'm very excited to take part in the summer vac scheme this summer with A&O.
Hi everyone, my name's Lara and I'm also a second-year law LLB student at Queen Mary. I am also a brand ambassador alongside Attendees, and I came from a socially, in terms of social mobility, I did have challenges in regard to that. So I feel very fortunate to have had this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to the summer vacation scheme.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for giving us a little introduction. One of the questions that we've had through, which I think is quite interesting, it's a question for you, Amy, as a future trainee. What one thing would you recommend doing to the students who are thinking or hoping to apply to A&O that you think really made your application successful? What element did you really push for research in or putting into your application that you think would be useful to share?
That's a really great question and a really tricky one as well. I think one thing that people tend to overlook is the importance of transferable skills. So I didn't have a lot of legal work experience when I applied to A&O First, but I don't think that put me at any detriment at all. I mean, clearly not. And I learned quite a lot of skills through the work that I've been doing as, so for example, I work at the post office near my house. I'm a residential assistant at university, and those are all roles that you can have on campus where you can build transferable skills that are pertinent to practicing law. So try and remember that it's not just legal work experience or legal-based things that you've done at university that makes you you. There are more things that you have done that you can use and utilize in your application.
That's a fantastic answer, Amy. It's always lovely to hear about different types of experience that people have and they can put into their application. Within the application process, actually, we do ask you about what experience you have. And there's no word limit for this. We do like to hear about absolutely everything, what skills you've gained from this, where you've worked. So it's always nice to have a nice range of it. And Amy, you're totally right as well. It's not the be all and end all. If you don't have legal experience at this stage, you will eventually gain it. And this is the point of the program as well, is to really give you that opportunity to jump into the corporate world. So, just another one. This goes out to all of you. If you could please tell me one thing each that you thought was the most valuable thing that you had learnt when you took part in the program last year.
I think I can take that one. So obviously for a law student, especially a first year law student, it's really hard to understand what departments of law firms actually do, right? When you see something like banking and finance, when you see something like international capital markets, it's really hard to relate as a first year law student. So I think the great thing about A&O First is that every team at A&O actually came in and gave in very detailed presentations in a very easy manner and explained all these complex terms to us. So really after the scheme, we felt so much more better and more comfortable with these commercial terms and commercial things that these law firms do. And another thing that I really learned well was how to ensure that you actually succeed and excel in the game of mini golf during the A&O First social. So that was also a very fun thing that I learned in this game.
I completely agree. It's a life skill that everyone should have. Lara, I'd like to ask you a question as well, actually. What was it about A&O that attracted you over other firms that you may have applied for or maybe researched?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I considered quite a lot of firms, but I have to say I definitely put the most, I worked the hardest on my A&O application for sure. And I have to say that would be down to experiences I had actually, first of all, starting with the brand ambassador at my university. He was incredible. And the way he spoke about A&O, he was so animated. And I thought, wow, I really want to be as excited as this guy about a firm. And if he's this excited, why can't I get this excited? And I heard about all the great opportunities, the fact that you get a trainee to support you on the journey. I really liked that. And my trainee was fantastic, honestly. So I think it was the fact that you get an extra trainee, and also just the way that I've noticed that A&O seems to just really light people up and get people excited. And it got me excited. So I have to say that's why A&O stood out to me.
Oh, Lara, that's such a lovely answer.
And I just wanted to add to something very similar that Lara said as well, having considered other firms. I think the one thing that really attracted all of us during the A&O First program as well was the culture at the firm, which is absolutely amazing, very supportive people. And I generally just enjoyed talking to every person I met from the A&O office. So I think that's something about A&O that I saw, which was really like attracting to me.
Brilliant. Atharav, I've got another one for you. Just going off of what you just said about the culture of the firm, did you find it difficult at all? Did you have any challenges moving from home over to London and coming into a British firm, or doing the application process as well? Could you tell us a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really daunting, especially moving from one country to another continent and then applying to commercial law firms, right? But I think the one thing about A&O was the fact that you see every person of every kind at the firm, which is why it's so, just the diversity that you see at the firm as well, and the initiatives that they've implemented to make sure that everyone feels comfortable at the firm. I think that was one thing that really made me feel easy about interacting with people from A&O as well. So yeah, I think it was quite easy to do with, just with the amazing initiatives that they had in place and just the amazing diversity that they had in place as well. I felt very comfortable being in the firm too. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So do you think that you could give a little piece of advice as to, if there are students who are in the same position as you, what's one of the most important things that you found really useful to you while doing this research? Was it talking to people? What did you do to kind of hit the ground running?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I would personally give, like, the advice that I would give is be active with university societies, because A&O does actually make a lot of visits to campus, whether you're a London university or whether you're not in London. So just taking the initiative by actually going to society events and actually listening to these people who come from law firms, I think that's the best way to really get the ground running. And I think to the firm as well, it really shows that initiative that you've taken the time out to go to the firm and to go to a law firm event and actually talk to someone from the firm. And I think that really shows a genuine interest in the firm too. So I think that's the best way I would potentially go about with that process.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Just a question to all three of you as well, if you'd like to chip in whenever. What did you do to go about increasing your commercial awareness?
I'm happy to start. So with commercial awareness, I was quite limited at the start of my first year. So I took up quite a few things. The Financial Times is always really helpful, and a lot of universities subscribe to that, so you don't have to pay for it. You can access it through your university. But one resource that really helped me actually was a website called Ziplaw. And what made this different from just reading something like the Financial Times is that they explain the article and then they say, this is how it impacts the clients. This is how it impacts the law firm. And when you're starting with limited commercial awareness, it just makes such a difference to have it just explained, this is how it impacts. And then when you're reading things like the Financial Times, you think, oh, I know how this impacts because I've read something similar, and you can just sort of keep building and keep connecting from that.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly follow on from that as well. I 100% agree with Lara that when you first start out, some resources can seem a little bit less accessible than others, and it can seem quite daunting. But using resources like Ziplaw, that is one that I use as well. Watson's Daily. There is an app called Finimize as well, which one of the associates recommended to us on the A&O First Returners Day. That is fantastic to build your commercial awareness. I think little and often is really important, and that's something that you'll hear a lot as well. I also find that I take in a lot more information when I'm listening to someone explain it to me. So podcasts were absolutely, incredible for me. Watson's Daily do their own podcast. Alan Overy do their own podcast as well. Just even on the way to university in the morning, when you're walking onto campus, just listening to a podcast and trying to keep that commercial awareness ticking over. Also, as a quick last one as well, if you're wanting to read the Financial Times but finding it a little bit difficult, BBC Business tend to have very similar articles on the same day as the Financial Times, but in a slightly more digestible format. So I tend to go BBC Business first, then the Financial Times afterwards, and it makes a little bit more sense.
I think I have nothing to add there, but if I had to add something, even the firm's website, Alan Overy as well, they release a lot of theme-based research, a lot of theme-based insights as to where they see a particular industry headed. And if there are certain words that you might not understand in those particular documents, then I would suggest Investopedia as well. They give definitions for almost every financial term there is. And once you really enter Investopedia, you kind of enter like a rabbit hole and you're constantly just looking at new financial terms. So I think those are the resources I would potentially recommend too, alongside the ones Amy and Lara recommended.
Those are absolutely fantastic answers. Thank you all so much. Just another one to put out to the floor as well. What did you do to prepare for your application process aside from your commercial awareness? If you maybe want to give us your top tips or one thing that you found particularly helpful whilst filling out your application. I know you have to think back to last year and how you felt at the time, but if you could give us a little story maybe about when you filled in your application for the first time, what was it like? How were you feeling? What did you think you needed to look up? And what did you think you wanted to write down?
So I'm happy starting with this one. Last year, I very much thought I wanted to be a barrister. So A&O First was the very first bit of solicitor experience that I'd even considered applying for. It was the first application that I'd looked at, and it was incredibly daunting. My first point of call was Alan Overy's website. I did find that really useful to kind of get an overview of the firm itself. But I'm a really big believer that you don't really get to know the firm until you speak to the people that are at the firm. Because as we've already spoken about as well, A&O's culture is really what does set it apart. Everyone is so fantastic and welcoming. So I reached out to a few people on LinkedIn. I actually spoke to a senior associate in international arbitration who was very, very lovely to me and even offered to get on the phone and call me and sort of talk me through some things that he finds very interesting about the firm. And that was really great for me because I could kind of see in the way he spoke about the firm and the things that interest him and the work he does, a bit of myself there as well, which then when I was writing my application and filling it out, I could kind of sort of talk about what makes me me, keeping at the back of my mind also what makes Alan and Overy Alan and Overy. And I really do think that was invaluable. So do utilize LinkedIn if you have it, and please do reach out. I'm sure I speak for all three of us when I say that we're very happy for you to contact us as well if you want to talk about our experiences at the firm in a little bit more depth than anything that interests you as well.
Absolutely. My experience was a little bit different. I always knew I wanted to be a solicitor, and I knew I wanted commercial law because I just found that the commercial world was so exciting to me. But I definitely say that really my top tip is that when you're writing about things like work experience and you're saying, oh, well, I stocked the shelves, there's a lot of people will have similar experiences to you. But it's the way that you write about your experiences that make your application unique. So if you're talking about, well, I implemented a new system of stocking shelves, which increased the workplace efficiency by 15%, by adding in statistics, facts, and figures showing how you really contributed to the team, shows a lot of skills that Alan and Overy will find impressive. And another thing is, before I even started my application, I took a look at Alan Overy's 4 core values. And I asked myself, honestly, are each of these reflective of me? Or is this maybe not the place for me? And I thought, looking at those values, I thought, yeah, this sounds really great. Did research on the website, just like Amy. And definitely spent a lot of time thinking, okay, how can I talk about my experience that a lot of people have had? I worked in a shop. A lot of people have worked in a shop. So how do I make myself stand out based on what I have? Because like Amy, I didn't have loads of legal work experience. So that's definitely a good way to stand out.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I actually wanted to be an investment banker in the start of the year, and that changed to commercial law. And A&O is also a firm which is really good at banking and finance law. So I think that was like the bridge for me to actually get introduced to A&O initially. Apart from the tips in the application stage, I would suggest in interviews, always use the STAR technique. So it really like justifies and summarizes your experiences in a crisp manner. It consists of situation, the task, the action, the result, and you can also add like a reflection at the end of it. And I think that's the way you can really uplift your interview experience too. Another thing, I just like to re-emphasize Amy's point about reaching out to people on LinkedIn. The person I reached out to was Hanif. Hanif is enjoying a very nice secondment in Singapore right now. And I wish I was in Singapore too right now. But I think whatever tips that these trainees as well as future trainees could potentially give you, I think that's really valuable as well. Even if they probably read over your application once, there's a lot of mistakes that one could make even in attention to detail issues. Instead of writing, you could spell Alan and Overy wrong. So you might want to avoid all of these small mistakes, which can really just cut your application out. So I think those are the tips that I would potentially give.
Thank you so much for that. Just another question to go out to the floor as well. What do you think was the most valuable piece of anything, information, advice, anything that you had throughout the start of your process until now, being Amy, a training card holder, and Atharv and Lara, knowing that you're coming on the Summervac scheme this year? What do you think has been that kind of selling point to you? What has been your favourite thing throughout this process?
I'm happy to start. My favorite thing about the process is actually how challenging yet rewarding it has been. I mean, this application, it took me a long time to write, and getting onto the scheme, it was difficult, and it was really rewarding feeling that. And I mean, I had a lot of mentors at the time, which really helped. I had the brand ambassador from A&O giving me a lot of support. And I think the most important thing that I was told by anyone was, don't discount yourself. Don't start thinking about all the numbers and think, oh, there's thousands of applications. Why would they choose me? But actually, it's really important. If you don't believe in yourself, that's going to come through. So you really have to make sure when you're writing application, you think, I do deserve this and I can do this. And it really helps, because when you get there, you just think, wow, I actually did it. And I think that was the most rewarding part for me, that it was such a challenge, but that I realized I could do it.
Yeah, I think mine is very similar to Lara's in that. So on my very last day of the winter vacation scheme, I was sort of doing the rounds and saying goodbye to all of the early careers team. And I went up to Matthew York, who is one of the members of the team, and he actually interviewed me for the A&O First scheme. And one thing he said to me was, "It has been so lovely meeting you, and I have loved watching your journey throughout the firm from here to sort of now." And that just really sat with me. Honestly, I sat on the train on the way home, like tearing up, because it's so fantastic how the support you get on A&O First, right from the get-go when you're at your first interview, all the way through to the end where I am at now, is the exact same throughout. You've got a fantastic team of people behind you, and they really do want you to succeed. In terms of a piece of advice that I got that I really thought was invaluable, was being kind of getting comfortable with not knowing. So I think a lot of the time you can go into interviews and kind of expect that you should be the finished product. But like Aoife was saying, that's not at all what's expected here. You're supposed to be showing potential. And it's okay if you get into your interview and you're sitting there and you're doing the case study and you're thinking, actually, I have no idea. It's okay to say, I don't understand what that means. Could you explain that to me? And then perhaps I can have a go at the question. That was honestly the best piece of advice that I got throughout the whole process. And it really did ring true.
I think I really just agree with both Amy and Lara. Really believe your self-worth. I think the one thing that I would potentially also add on to that is getting a training contract and getting a VAC scheme. It's ultimately like a journey. So, and on this journey, it's ultimately how you as a candidate can become a trainee, right? So what experiences are you indulging in, not just for getting A&O First, but for ultimately developing to be the best trainee out there? That's the way I looked at it. And I think that mindset will really help. And once you're focused on your personal development and not just getting one offer, I feel that the offers really do start coming as well. So I think having that mindset that you really want to learn, you really want to develop, giving a lot of time and effort into it, I think you will be rewarded for that.
Fantastic answers. Just another question through the chat function. Did you find it intimidating speaking to partners? How can you kind of set yourself up to speak to a partner or a senior associate throughout your interview? If you remember who you had, who was it? Did you enjoy it? Did they make conversation with you too? What advice can you give to reassure the students applying for A&O First this year do not need to panic at all when speaking to a partner?
I'm happy to start again, purely because I was absolutely terrified going into my partner interview. I really thought, oh my gosh, their partners, they're, at the top of the firm, really, they're going to be absolutely terrifying. And that is not true at all. They are just people like you. So I had a really lovely gentleman called Robbie, and he spent the whole entire time joking and laughing with me. It honestly felt like I was talking to a friend. It was really, really wonderful. And again, the whole, I'm really not sure about this. Can we talk through it? And then he was teaching me about different areas of law and what he does and how that would relate into the case study as well. And we just had a fantastic time sort of having that kind of two-way conversation as well. So kind of trying to build a rapport with your interviewer, but also remembering, they're people too. Use this opportunity as a moment for growth as well. Learn what they do at the firm and how they can help you as well. But yeah, I had a really fantastic time. I said to Charlie afterwards when she reached out that it just consolidated for me even more why I wanted to work at Allen Overy, because it was just such a fantastic and welcoming interview to have.
I'm happy to go next. So the partner who interviewed me was Gareth Irving, and we're actually still in contact now, which I'm very fortunate for. In my interview, I was really, really nervous for the partner. I just thought, oh, it's a partner. I've spoken to associates and trainees now, but it's a partner, and that is intimidating. But when you speak to them, I got to a point in my interview where I said, oh, I'm not quite sure. I think it might be this, but I'm just not completely convinced. And, he said, well, you're on the right lines and I can see that you're really trying. And it was just a bit of the encouragement and support. And I just thought, actually, you know what? This guy is just a person. And at the end of my interview, I actually thanked him for just being a person that I could speak to. And I was very fortunate that he told me to get in touch afterwards. And once I got my offer, I did. And we still communicate, and he's just been really friendly and lovely.
Usually I like to tell people that, oh yeah, I was not scared during my interview at all. I just absolutely aced it, eyes closed, piece of cake. But actually, I was absolutely frightened before entering my first partner interview as well. So that is a very valid question too. So I was actually interviewed by a counsel, Teresa, and I felt that the first minute, just after the first minute in the interview, it was so conversational that I automatically just eased into the interview. And I think that's just how interviews at A&O in general are. There are a lot of follow-ups. It's very conversational. So in that sense, I was very comfortable. And the same point that Amy and Lara highlighted, they are ultimately humans. They ultimately do have their own experiences. So I think at A&O, you really feel that human connection too. So yeah, I think it was overall a good experience.
Brilliant. It's so nice to hear such positive feedback about your experiences. I hope it set a couple of minds at ease. If you could go back in time, this is for the panel, if you could go back in time, what thing would you change about your application process, or when you were writing it, what would you add? What would you take away? If you could go back and speak to past you, what would you say to them? I know that's a bit of a hard question. Sorry, if you want to take a moment to think about it, you'll have to just put yourself back a moment. If you think of yourselves now as offer holders and you know what you've got to look forward to, what would you even say to reassure yourself as well? Being in that position, thinking, oh, it's daunting to even do the application process, let alone an interview. So maybe if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice or reassure yourself, or even, what you would do differently.
I would tell myself to take my time, actually, because I found I got so enraptured by the fact it was a rolling deadline that I thought I must get my application in really quickly. And if anything, I think I would have spent a couple more days on it than I did, because I only gave it about a week, I think. And I think I would have felt a lot more confident and relaxed if I had just taken my time, worked my way through it, and then I could feel really confident in the application I submitted. Because I got too caught up in the deadline and sort of lost sight of the fact that it's okay and you can take your time. There is no need to rush. There are always spaces, even though it is rolling till the very end. So it's okay.
I mean, mine is kind of similar in that I would tell myself to slow down and enjoy it a little bit more. I think there's a real sort of expectation that we put on ourselves as law students, is that we should be the finished product now, and that we should be absolutely, at the top of the sort of academic ladder, when that doesn't have to be the case at all. I tend to really worry about things, kind of over worry, over prepare, and really stress myself into like a whole thing of, oh my gosh, I'm not ready, it's not going to go okay at all. Slow down, enjoy the process, make the most of it. Take a deep breath, because you're not supposed to be the finished product at all. You're supposed to be showing potential. Make sure you do get the opportunity to show who you are as a person and how you would fit in at A&O as well. I think that's pretty much it for me.
I completely agree with that. The one statement I'd say is just don't stress. Everyone is in the same position as you. To all those people on this call right now as well, everyone is a first-year student on a 3-year degree or a second-year student on a 4-year degree. They all are going through the same emotions that you are going through. And you do not need to be a finished product. Just show your enthusiasm. And I think that's more than enough.
And you don't need to get firsts in every subject. So please don't worry if you haven't got a first in everything, because I know that's a pressure people put on themselves. You don't need a first in everything. You really don't.
That's some fantastic advice. I've got one more question for the panel, and then we are going to move on to a very special success story. Just to put it out there for any of you to answer, did you find doing things virtually different to doing them in person? And what did you find really useful about being able to do things online or learning online that you could then demonstrate throughout your application, or when you joined the summer vac, or whilst you were on winter vac last year?
So I just wanted to confirm the question, as in doing things online with respect to the interview processes, or just the whole COVID phase and how everything was.
Just in general, yeah, participating in things online, researching online. How did you find your experience doing things virtually, and then kind of using that knowledge that you've gained and the experience you've gained to then do things in person, or what did you find you preferred? This could be things like going to webinars, into virtual talks, TED Talks, kind of conversations at uni, anything you might have experienced as part of your law degree, or maybe the degree you're already doing, anything that you kind of quite enjoyed and thought, oh, I could actually see myself doing this in the future because it's related to law.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm happy to start. So I definitely found with the virtual world, I went to a lot of webinars. My diary was just full. Every day it seemed to be a new webinar, because I wanted to learn more about different firms, which one's right for me, all of that. Especially A&O, those ones were always flagged and highlighted. But I always knew I liked the firm. And I have to say that after doing A&O First in person, I do like online events and I do think they're really helpful, but I'm an in-person girl at heart. I really like being able to see people and talk to them in person. I just love the atmosphere of that. But I would say that there are some things that are virtual which are really great. For example, I like that there are websites such as, I believe it is Forage, where you can do virtual work experience. And I did a few programs on there with other firms like Clifford Chance. And I found this really helpful for sort of developing my commercial knowledge, so that when I went to do my application for A&O, that I was able to put in a good one with my commercial knowledge, because I thought, okay, I've actually done some work experience on that. And I think that would have been quite daunting as a first year to do in person for someone, because I'm thinking, oh, I've never written something like this before. I don't know if I'd want to show anyone. So I think virtually sometimes when you're trying something new, it can actually be reassuring to have it online. But at the same time, it's really nice to be in person. I don't think that virtual can quite capture the atmosphere and the culture of being in person in a firm.
I think for me personally, I like the virtual mediums too, in the sense of accessibility. Right now, I'm in India and I'm giving a talk to a lot of first years who are based in the UK right now. So I think just the fact that you're able to just sit in the comfort of your home and attend as many events as possible, it's quite a comfortable process, right? You don't have to like dress up in your formals, although right now I am in my formals. You don't have to go all the way to London in a train and then take the tube and then the train strikes. So you really get through all the hassle of everything. And the one good thing about online events, the thing that Lara said about having a journal, whenever you do attend online events, I feel that it's personally easier to just take notes as well, things that you can use later on in your applications. I had a notebook ready before I went for my A&O First scheme. I just had a bunch of pointers, top tips, things to prepare, things to look out for. I think just those privileges you do not get in a physical event. So I think overall, both physical and virtual are great, and there are certain advantages to both.
Yeah, I think mine probably follows on quite nicely, in the sense that what I was going to say is that virtual events are great as long as you're listening actively. So I was going to recommend as well taking notes, and you can get just as much out of them as you can get out of in-person events, because I have done both. Attending webinars like this, like Lara was saying, especially during COVID, my diary was absolutely full. And they were very accessible for me because I live quite far out of London, so I wasn't having to travel in all the time. But when I did travel in for careers events, it was still exciting, and I was still, taking notes and trying to listen actively. So I think the skills are the same there, and that you're trying to make sure that you're really connecting with what the speakers are saying. In terms of, as opposed to like virtual or in-person schemes such as this one, like we were all saying about the culture and the real sort of feel you get for A&O when you step through those doors, I don't think that can be replaced by a webinar. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic that we get the option to go down to the offices in person, to meet the early careers teams and to build those connections with our peers as well. Yeah, it's just fantastic. So both are great, but in person for A&O, definitely the best.
And the mini golf too. Love the mini golf.
Oh, well, thank you all ever so much for helping us out with answering a couple of questions today. We are going to move on to a little success story now with Amy. If you have any questions for Amy, please do pop it into the chat function. Amy was part of A&O First last year. She came onto Winterback just gone and will be joining us as a trainee in 2025. So, Amy, would you like to give us a little timeline of your journey into becoming a trainee, what you found was really useful, what challenges you may have faced, and just give us a little bit of an idea of how you managed to go from first year to exactly where you are now?
Yeah, of course. So as we've kind of already briefly touched, as part of A&O First, you get fast tracked through to the assessment centre for either a training contract or a vacation scheme, and I chose the latter. In terms of how A&O First helped me prepare for that, I really found that by this time I knew the firm inside and out. So I'm a brand ambassador as well, and obviously you get to go back to A&O First for Returners Day in September. So by the time your interview comes around for the vacation scheme or the training contract, you really do find that actually all of this knowledge you've built has really made you be able to kind of genuinely answer that question of why A&O. I think I've already touched on this as well, in that my assessment centre experience really did sort of confirm for me why I wanted to work at A&O. It was such a wonderful experience. Both my interviewers were really lovely and tried to put me at ease. And also, I was diagnosed with a long-term mental health condition halfway through the A&O First process. So I didn't have any adjustments in place for the application for the scheme. But for my back scheme application, I got in touch with Charlie, and the firm were able to accommodate anything that I needed to be put in place as well. So that was really great. And then Charlie reached out afterwards to make sure that I felt supported, which was fantastic. So I would say that if you are sort of wondering whether or not you should keep those things to yourself, don't share them with the firm. If you need help, get help. You know, it's all about working sort of equitably, in the sense that you want to be on the same level playing field as your peers, and to do so, if you need a little bit of extra support, that's more than okay. In terms of the vaccine itself, so I was down in London for 5 days in December, which was absolutely fantastic, partly because I got to see London at Christmas. So I don't go to London very often, but my walk to work every morning was through this beautiful little courtyard with all the Christmas lights out, and it was just absolutely fantastic. I sat in B6, which is our banking regulation department, and that was really fantastic. A&O First, in a sense, kind of makes walking through those doors on your first day that little bit less daunting. You'll still be nervous, but you're familiar with where you are, and you sort of know, you know, the process of what you do when you get in and you go to reception, and that's really fantastic in itself. And also, when I walked in on my first day, one of the first people I saw was a girl called India, who was a friend that I'd made on A&O First anyway. So that was absolutely fantastic, just to be able to walk in and sort of have all of my nerves calmed by the fact that actually, you know what, I know where I am, I'm really happy here, and hey, look, I even know some people that are here already as well. I was talking to my trainee buddy about this the other day, actually. The Early Careers team have this really uncanny ability of being able to bring together people that just sort of click from the get-go. So even if you don't know everyone there, because you won't, not everyone will have gone on A&O First, I really found that I was making friendships and connections as quickly as anything. And I'm so excited by the fact that a lot of those people that were there with me will now be my future colleagues as well. In terms of the work I sort of did whilst I was on the vacation scheme, so I worked on Israeli digital asset regulation, which was all to do with cryptocurrency in Israel, which I knew absolutely nothing about before I came onto the vacation scheme, and I found that absolutely terrifying. But my trainer was really lovely. He was an associate called Rory. He really put my mind at ease. We were laughing the whole week. And one of the nice things about A&O First as well, as we've kind of mentioned, is that you do get that trainee mentor, but you also get a new one as well for the vacation scheme. So I had 2 trainee buddies who were able to support me throughout the scheme, and funnily enough, they were best friends. So that was quite nice as well. We were able to sort of keep connected together and go for coffee. And, you know, when I was stuck and had a 150-page document in Hebrew that I needed to translate so that I could do my research for Rory, they were more than happy to sort of help signpost me towards the right services and things there. So yeah, reaching out for help, making sure that you know that your support system is in place to help you. That was really fantastic as well. You'll have a lot of fun on the scheme as well. So we also do something called an innovation challenge. I'm not sure if that will be the same for the summer one. I assume it will be, but you're essentially put into a group of small teams where you work together to create some sort of innovative piece of technology or solution to something that's an issue at the firm currently. I've made really close friends within my innovation challenge group, so we all still keep connected now. which is absolutely fantastic. And like I said, I didn't think it was possible to meet people and just sort of instantly think, you know what, that's going to be a friend for a long time, but it really has been. When we were waiting for our sort of calls to let us know whether we'd been offered a TC, we were all texting on the group chat going, have you heard anything yet? Have they called you? Which was really nice as well, being able to build those connections and rapport. So they don't leave you hanging either. You do find out very shortly after you finish the vacation scheme whether you've had your offer. So I got a call from Eva on, I think, the Tuesday after I finished the scheme on the Friday. So that was absolutely fantastic as well. I'm still in touch very much with my trainer and my trainee buddies. And I do think I will be for a long time, especially my trainee buddy from A&O First, Annabelle. She has become more of a friend than a mentor now. She has been absolutely fantastic for me. We get on so well. And she always says to me to pay it forward, and that everything that she does for me, she does because her trainee mentor and trainee buddy did for her on the A&O First scheme when she did it however many years ago. So hopefully, you know, when I start my training contract at the firm, I'll be able to be a trainee buddy as well and be able to pay that forward. So that's fantastic as well. It's just a fantastic sort of collegiate atmosphere, and everyone wants to help everyone.
I'm so glad to hear, and I completely agree with you. One of the most exciting things and beneficial things is being able to have that trainee buddy, and to know that you're still in contact with your buddy from A&O First as well as Winterback, and that they happen to be really good friends as well. It's meant to be. But it's really lovely to hear that you had such a fantastic experience too. You've got an amazing success story as well, one that we really hope is going to be replicated by the people who are going to be applying for us this year and who have attended the webinar today. Amy, if you could give us one piece of advice specifically for yourself that you would love to share with other people that maybe hasn't been mentioned yet today, about knowing that you're going to be a trainee in a couple of years' time here at A&O, what sort of advice would you give to the students who have attended the webinar today, just to be able to make sure that their success story is just like yours?
Yeah, so I think that's a really tough question, and we have kind of already touched upon it in the sense that I would say it's okay not to know and just try and showcase who you are and be the best you. But I also think as well, trying to make sure that you really get a really holistic overview of the firm as well. Put yourself out there, attend these webinars. That's really fantastic. Show that you're proactive and that you're really ambitious and that you're trying to sort of get an overview of why you really want a career in commercial law. And also one thing as well, don't compare yourself to your competitors or to your peers. Those are your friends. They're going to be lifelong connections. You're not in competition with one another. You're trying to showcase how you are the right person for A&O, just as they're trying to showcase that as well. So build those connections, make the most of your time, and really do enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Amy. If anybody does have any last questions for Amy, just pop them into the chat now. If not, then we can move on to a couple of questions towards the early careers team. But Amy, thank you so much. And to Lara and Athara, if they're still hiding somewhere, thank you so much for answering the questions from the chat today. And we really hope they've been extra helpful, and it's been really insightful for you all to hear from people that have gone through the exact same thing that you are hoping to go through. So if anything pops up for Amy specifically, I'll give it a minute or so just to have a look.
I think there's a couple of questions coming through. So we've got one from Carrie. And Amy, I could feed into this as well, but how did you personally prepare for the situational judgment test, if you did at all?
Yeah, so I think I've seen your answer pop up in the chat to this question already, but I was very much the same. So I didn't overly stress myself in preparing. I think it's really important that you answer authentically, in the sense that you shouldn't be trying to second guess what the firm's going to want you to say. I think a lot of people do fall into the trap, or at least from what I've heard of, I'll sell my soul, I'll be here until 6 a.m, I'll do everything I possibly can to make this right. If I've made a mistake, I'm not going to own up to it, I'm going to try and fix it, and trying to really people please, and that's not at all the right approach. You're wanting to be transparent and honest and to answer honestly regarding what response you would take. So yeah, I very much just sort of sat down and said to myself, you know, if I was here and I was really in this situation, what are the steps that I would be taking? And that worked out for me.
Very good advice. We've also got a question. Someone's interested to know, Amy, is there a particular practice area that you're specifically interested in?
Yeah, so my answer to that question is going to be no. There are a few that I do think I might have an interest in, but purely because I was so hell-bent on being a barrister that I did not look into any other area of law whatsoever. I knew that I wanted to go to the commercial bar, and that was that. I attended A&O First, and my whole world was absolutely spun upside down. And since then, I have very much sort of maintained the mindset of, you know what, I'm always going to be open-minded and happy to try new things until I do my training contract and, you know, do all the different seats that I'm going to do. I don't think I can really answer the question of, you know, which practice area am I most interested in and why. Having sat in banking regulation, I do find that incredibly interesting now. My whole family thinks that that's really so unbelievably dull. But I am still keeping in touch with Rory and what he's been up to, and I find that really interesting. But yeah, try and keep open-minded. If you know that there's an area that you're interested in, that's really great as well. But I think it's a really fantastic skill to be able to sort of go in and say, you know what, I have no idea what this is whatsoever, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to keep an open mind and sort of see where life directs me.
I've met so many trainees as well who have been allocated a seat that perhaps wasn't at the top of their preference list, ended up really enjoying it and wanting to qualify in that seat as well. So I think, yeah, your advice around being open-minded is really, really important. We've got a question as well, I guess focused for Aoife and I on, would you say that having a section in your CV for events you attend with firms is something worthwhile? And Amy, I guess you can feed into, is that something you actually personally did in your application? Because I think as early careers professionals, we would definitely recommend you do that. You've mentioned CV in the question, but we kind of take an application form rather than a CV or cover letter. So within that application form, I would say the work experience section is actually probably the best place for you to create a section, because there's no word limit. You're not limited to what you can tell us in that section. And just having, you know, a few events, whether it be in person, virtual, telling us what you learned from them. Did you meet anyone that you had any particular helpful conversations with that you want to share with us? All of that just kind of shows, I guess, a level of proactivity in you seeking out opportunities to find out about whether an opportunity is right for you, learning more about an industry or learning more about the culture by talking to the people. And I think it's that proactivity that can actually really set you apart from other candidates who perhaps haven't done that at the same time as their studies as well. So I would absolutely encourage you to do that. And, you know, sign up to as much as you can just to really increase your knowledge. You know, everyone dialed into this webinar today. That's brilliant. You're showing that proactivity, and this is something you can take with you to, you know, only strengthen future applications as well.
Yeah, just to hop on to what Charlie said, it would be really fab within the work experience section if you have done any sort of virtual events or anything online, just to give us a couple of reasonably sized answers about them, just so we can see what you've learned, why you enjoyed it, who you networked with, and why that's really helpful in your decision to pursue a career in commercial law.
I also think I'd add as well, if you're wanting to sort of quantify the events that you've attended to and you don't want to list everything that you've done, BPP, at least they used to, I'm not sure if they still do, but they used to offer out certificates for people that have attended, I think it was about 4 or 5 career development events. So every time I went to one, I sort of ticked that off, and then I eventually got these certificates, which is something that I did mention on my A&O First application. And a lot of events that you do attend, such as the Bright Network sort of virtual vacation scheme and Legal Cheeks as well, they all offer sort of like certificates or things to say that you've done the event, which can be quite useful for putting on CVs or applications, such as the A&O First one. But the BPP one was one that I used.
Great advice. Just hunting through to see if there's any questions that we've missed. I think that might have covered everything.
A really quick question about the work experience section, whether it should be bullet points or prose. You are more than welcome to write about where you've done your work experience and put the dates in. You are welcome to use bullet points, but please do elaborate within those sentences. So the answer's both. You can kind of separate the points that you're going to make within your work experience, but please do make sure that you're elaborating on this in full sentences. It doesn't need to be a fully lined paragraph within it. Just make sure that it's comprehensive, it's full of detail, but you can split it up into more digestible pieces.
I think sometimes subheadings can be quite helpful if you want to try and structure and be a bit more formal with your writing. Just split it into kind of maybe responsibilities, achievements, and then to just kind of elevate that further. I do think it's really nice when people, and this can be related to legal work experience or non-legal work experience, kind of highlight the transferable skills that work experience in particular might have helped to for you to develop, and just kind of linking it back to how that's continuing to set you up for success as a future trainee is a really great thing that we see candidates do, and that I think strengthens their application as well. Just had a question around the video interview. Is there any way that you can prepare for the video interview, and what should we be doing during the 5-day period between the interview invite and the actual interview? That's a really good question. So this is the interview for the A&O First programme. So within that interview, there'll be a couple of questions to begin with that are really to do with your motivation for applying to the A&O First programme, what you'd like to get out of it, and doing a bit of research just so that you can show the interviewer that you understand the programme. Especially, having attended this event today, you can actually talk about what you learn, talk about the motivators or, the inspiration that you took away from the individuals who you heard went on the programme last year and who shared their experiences. So be able to demonstrate, research, a bit of knowledge about the firm, and be clear on your reasons why A&O First, compared with other programs available as well, in case you get that question. But the second part of the interview will largely be focused on a commercial case study, which you can't really prepare for in the sense that there are no preparation materials that we give you ahead of time. It's a really short case study that we just kind of read to you in real time and have a few questions to discuss back and forth. But it's very much commercial case study, not a legal case study, as this opportunity is open to law and non-law students. So just be aware of key trends at the moment, keep an eye on different factors that are affecting our clients, different key themes that we might need to be really wary of as a firm to stay ahead of the curve in terms of providing solutions for clients within the industries that we work with as well. So a bit of general research around what's going on in the world, different kind of pestle issues, I think will really support your performance at interview. Having a look through the list.
Just to answer Elizabeth's question, who's the video interview with? It will be one of the Early Careers team who your video interview with.
That's correct. And we have a question around, do we have an opportunity to apply for summer or winter vacation scheme while in the first year? You need to be penultimate or final year to apply for a VAC scheme, but as part of A&O First, if you're successful in coming onto that programme, there's no further step to take before we ask, what is your preference to interview for, winter VAC, summer VAC, or a TC? And there are no further stages in the application process. We simply book you into an assessment centre in the autumn for your preferred route. In terms, we have a question around GCSE requirements. Are there any GCSE requirements? We ask for you to kind of list your GCSEs, but really what we'll be looking at is your A-levels, what you obtained at A-level, and if you have any undergraduate module grades already, even if they're only predicted, that will be really helpful. But equally, we understand that not everyone has, a full comprehensive list of either predicted grades, or in some instances, people might not have any grades at all this time of year. We understand that. So what we'll do is we'll base kind of the decision on your academic attainment at A-level, and then the other factors that we look at as part of your application form, and then we just check in later in the year to see how you're getting on in those modules. We've got a question around, does accounting and finance background help make the application stand out? Anything that's unique to you and your experiences. And I think there are so many transferable skills, especially if you think about how they're key industries that we work with as a firm. There's definitely going to be things there that you can kind of draw on, experiences that you've drawn on, kind of knowledge and worthwhile transferable skills highlighting that you can highlight as part of your application. So absolutely kind of use that as your unique selling point, I guess, and bring that to life on your application, and tell us a bit about that for sure. Aoife, do you want to take one more question and then we can wrap up?
Definitely. Let me just have a little mooch through. So there's a really interesting one. Are we at a disadvantage if we apply for a direct TC? Not at all. It's totally your choice what you would like to apply for. The only thing we say to be wary of is you are still first year. Please do make sure that you are really, really doing your research about what firm is right for you and what career path is right for you in terms of your steps of finishing university, doing your either a conversion or moving into your SQE to then become a trainee solicitor. It seems really scary because it's so far away, but it comes so much quicker than you can imagine. I'm sure, Amy, you agree, 2025 is going to be here before we know it. So depending on what you choose to apply for, every assessment centre is the same, whether you're applying for a vacation scheme or a training contract, the application is the same. So there's no disadvantage or advantage for whatever route you choose to do.
Yeah, I would just quickly add as well that in one of my interviews, my interviewer even said to me, he was like, I don't know if you're applying for a TC or for a vac scheme. I don't want to know, but it was sort of like, oh, okay. So we are definitely having the exact same interview. Your interviewer is, no idea of whether you're applying for a TC or not. For me, the decision was very much just made that I wanted a little bit more legal work experience before I fully committed, like Aoife was saying. So if you're in a similar boat and you don't have a lot of legal experience under your belt, I would definitely recommend the vac scheme.
That is fab. I think we'll wrap up there. Amy, Athara and Lara, thank you so much for being part of the panel and for sharing your stories and loads of advice and loads of tips. We have got a little bit of information for you all about how you can keep in touch with us after this webinar going forward. Please do have a look at the website and our Instagram as well. We do put a lot of things on the stories about application windows, hints and tips, events we have coming up. There's a lot of useful resources for those who are going to be filling out their applications as well. There's a podcast and a video series on the A&O graduate website. And just a final reminder to you all as well that you will be applying directly through the website, not through a CV or a cover letter. Everything is really accessible on the website that you will be able to find it straight away. But Charlie and I are going to hang around for another couple of minutes just in case you have any questions to the Early Careers team. Aside from that, to our panel, thank you so much. It was incredibly helpful, and I hope you've enjoyed it too.
Great to see the messages in the chat. Thank you so much for joining and for all of your great questions, everyone. We look forward to hopefully receiving your applications. We've got a question about applying to be a brand ambassador. I'm really happy to take that one. So Rate My Placement run our brand ambassador campaign, and I believe applications for those will be opening around May time. So keep an eye out, and we'll be advertising that on our Instagram channels as well when the opportunity opens for application.
Just another question as well about the fast track as part of being A&O First. It is up to you whether you decide to be fast tracked for an interview for summer vac, winter vac, or a TC. So it's not just the vac schemes that you can be fast tracked for an interview for, it is all three of them.
In terms of it being a rolling application process, it's really hard to know. It changes every year. There's no kind of perfect time to apply. Don't sacrifice applying early for the sake of not being ready. So as Lara said earlier on, take your time to make sure that you're really happy with your application before you press submit. But then, if you can, I wouldn't wait until, the last few days of the window, just because we start inviting people through to interview as we go over the course of the application window. So as early as possible, but definitely not sacrificing quality because of that. We've got, if I am a first year on a 4-year degree, but I'm planning to move on to the 3-year programme, can I still apply? So at the point of the programme, you just need to make sure that you are either first year of a 3-year degree or second year of that 4-year degree. So as long as you fit into those criteria at the time of the programme, then you will be eligible. Got a question from LLM student working full-time as a paralegal currently, interested in A&O. My thoughts are that you wouldn't be eligible for A&O First simply because it's for undergraduate students, but absolutely would be welcome to apply for a vacation scheme or a training contract directly when applications open again in August of this year. So keep an eye out for kind of application hints and tips, and we would welcome your application in the next round of VAC scheme and TC vacancies.
Just a question about transitioning to a 3-year degree as well. If you're currently on a 4-year degree, the expectation is that you would apply in your second year. But if you are actually dropping a year next year and you only plan to be at university for another 2 years, then this is the right time to apply, as you are technically in your first year of a 3-year course. As long as you can, when we catch up on modules and grades and stuff throughout the year, just let us know that you definitely have moved to a 3-year course rather than a 4.
Great, I think that's all the questions. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Amy. Thank you, Lara. Thank you, Atharav. And thank you, Aoife. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys, for listening.